Want me to do introduction all again or no?
All right, hold tight. Let me get up the slides, and then Dr. Harris, the screen will be yours. So hold tight.
And Dr. Harris is joining, well, she's joining us from Barbados. And she also invited the Barbados Cancer Society to join the program. So hello to those who may be attending from Barbados, from the Barbados Cancer Society. We're very grateful to have you here tonight. So thank you.
Hey, you ready, Dr. Harris?
Yes. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Miss Chase and Miss Paula?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right then. Hello, hi from Detroit. Okay. All over the world. That's great. It's amazing what technology could do, especially for support, so that you know you're truly not alone, you know? So I'm the first slide, that's just an introduction. But the second slide is just a title, you know, let's talk about it. Thank you for reducing the pressure. Now I know what level of conversation I could have. It's nice just to be relaxed off duty. So again, food for the soul, nourishing our culture with healthy alternatives. So on the next slide, this is in memory of my mother, Janet Callender, and my grandmother, Iris Callender. So ancestry from the region, but specifically from Barbados. But my mom on the left, Janet Callender, she was a hairdresser for like 30 plus years. So growing up in New York, she used to work for Paul Mitchell, Clairol. Can everyone hear me? You can hear me, Miss Poland?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So my mother, she was a hairdresser in New York City for 30 plus years. And she worked for Paul Mitchell, Clairol. I remember tagging along with her going to Bronner Brothers, the hair shows in Atlanta and everything like that. She used to do the hair for the news anchors on Fox 5 News. So she's done a lot. She did a lot. So, you know, the information that we knew back then isn't the information that we know now. But basically, she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008, and she owned her own business. And, you know, women were always taking care of family, friends, everyone else, and hopefully we're looking after ourselves last. But that's the same with her. She owned her own business, taking care of everyone. And the one time she decided to reschedule her screening, the following year, she realized that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008, just when I was finishing pharmacy school. I went to St. John's in New York, in Queens, New York, or Jamaica specifically. And I was just learning the cancer medication. And then I found out she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So she had the the biopsy, mastectomy, chemotherapy, and whatnot. So 2008, she was diagnosed. Again, background, I'm a pharmacist. I graduated in 2008. I licensed in New York, New Jersey, Florida, and now in Barbados. But in 2009, I left New York and started practicing in Florida. And then I always wanted to be the type of pharmacist that spoke to the patients, not just dispense your medication and here you go. And I think I learned that from my grandmother, lady on the right. She was 88 at that time. So I wanted to give her I wanted to take her out for a nice photo shoot. So I took her out to a photographer in Flushing, Queens. So she had my wig on at the time, but she was 88 at the time. So basically, I was learning with her going, especially in Queens, we're going to Flushing, and she could talk to someone all day long. I'll be at Woolworth or Caldor, and she's speaking to her friend for 3 hours straight. So I guess that's why I learned how to talk, and especially in pharmacy, that's where it comes in handy. Especially you're discussing a lot of sensitive topics.
Hold tight,
And you,
Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris,
yeah,
you're kind of going in and out.
well,
So we're starting now to have some difficulty hearing you.
can you hear me better now?
Yeah, if it could be like that.
If it could be.
Okay, I'll lean more into the phone.
Yeah, lean into us. Lean into
Okay,
us. All
you
right.
can hear
All
me
right.
better now?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, great. So, like I said, learning how to especially get a lot of sensitive health information, because of sensitivities, cultural too. A lot of people aren't inept to give out that personal information. So I learned that skill from my grandmother. I thank my grandmother for that. So even Miss Chase and Miss Coleman would have to tell me to wrap it up because I could go on all night talking, right? But basically, I moved from Queens to Florida. I was working in Orlando, Central Florida, like Davenport, Claremont, Orlando area. And then in 2016, I was processing a prescription and I was like, I can't do this anymore because, again, me as a pharmacist, I always wanted to speak to the patient. It wasn't just putting a sticker on the box, here you go. The lines were backing up, especially I'll speak for pharmacists here. When you see the lines and the drive-throughs and the pharmacies, we don't like the lines either. We would love to speak to the patients, but a lot of the factors and the circumstances and it's just counter to what I wanted to be as a healthcare provider to my patients. So in 2016, I called my mom and I was like, listen, I'm taking a year off, unpaid. That's how much I wanted to get from behind the counter. And she's like, where are you going? And I'm like, well, I'll just go to Barbados, the furthest I could trace back ancestral wise. Because growing up, every year as a kid, we would go to JFK and go to Barbados for the summer. My grandmother was like a snowbird. She would spend the winter months in Barbados. And I was like, you know what? My great grandmother leaving Barbados, she allowed, through the sacrifice to my grandmother and mother, allowed me to have a doctoral degree and whatnot. So just paying it forward. So I call this like a pseudo mission trip. No one told me to do this. Just divine, just just to way to my grandmother would used to say, as long as there's breath in my body. And the same, as long as there's breath in my body, anything I could do to help another family, patient, or whatnot. So 2016, I took a year off. I left for Barbados and I was in the process of getting my internship here in Barbados. And a month into the internship, I found out that my mom's breast cancer metastasized or spread to her brain and spine. And she had 4 months to live. So it's like dealing with this year will be 25 years I've been in pharmacy. But the thing is, dealing with so many patients in New York, Florida, all over, all different stages, just recently diagnosed to hospice. And now my own mom I couldn't do anything for, you could throw as much medication as you want, but when it's that person's time, that's it. So finding out she had 4 months to live and I couldn't believe it. So that was November 2017. I left Barbados, went back to Florida, and now transitioning from being a pharmacist and helping others to now I'm being the caregiver, the executor of her estate, and the support team as well. So when I left Barbados, November 2017, she just didn't want, again, she was diagnosed in 2008. So the constant chemo, the side effects, and she was just like, I'm tired, because she grew up with 4 boys. She was the only girl. And plus she was a tomboy too. She would say a lot of stories. Like one time, like when they did do the mastectomy, I'm just telling you, this is her conversations being real, right? She wrote a marker here and she's like, cut this one, right? So it's just like, she was very like, because she was a tomboy, she was just very, whatever needs to be done, needs to be done, right? So in the later stages, she's like, I just don't want to go through because she was going through radiation. She had Ommaya reservoir, so she had a port here, and because it metastasized to her brain, they put Ommaya reservoir, which is a port that's like rests right on top of the skull. And she was just done. So she even spoke to the doctor. She'd even tell me, mind you, pharmacist working all these years, I'm still a daughter to her. Regardless of a pharmacist and helping other patients, I'm still seen as a daughter to her. She'd even tell me, she told me afterwards, but she spoke to the doctor first. On top of the skull. On top. It's the question. Yeah. Yeah. So they cut an incision and they put the Port Omaya, Omaya reservoir. So they put it on top of the skull because, again, the blood-brain barrier, so that the medication can get directly to the site of action. So basically, after the doctor, she told the doctor she wanted to go to hospice. Then it's transitioned to Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, she's in hospice. We're watching the ball drop in her hospice room. January, and again, this is really important to make sure. No one wants to talk about wills and death and stuff like that, but it's so important because she had at the later stages, the healthcare team was saying, do you have a will? And we're all keeping out hope. And the social workers like, make sure you have a will. So say they came Wednesday, the social worker, because she was admitted into hospice and then she wanted to be at home. So she did in-home hospice. So that's when they bring in all the medical supplies and equipment, the hospital bed. They had an in-home nurse that I realized, give it to all the healthcare team, but the nurse, they stay with you all depending. That goes through Medicare and stuff like that. But they stay throughout the whole like 12-hour period because sometimes in the middle of the night, it'll be like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll go downstairs just to see if she's still breathing. And the hospice nurse was like, that's why I'm here for. And then just as a caveat, finding out she had 4 months to live, and then finding out I was pregnant with my first child, her first grandchild, all at the same time. And a month before that, a miscarriage. So I'm like, God, I can't believe this. I told God I wanted to be of service when I first left, but sometimes your journey in life, you think you're going to be from A to B, but it's all these twists and turns along the way. So basically in January, say it was a Wednesday, the social workers like, you need to really think about a will and stuff like that. We just Googled a will that was sufficient and we signed off. And when it was time for her to sign off, me thinking that she could still do penmanship, she couldn't even sign her name. I had to hold her hand and sign, and I'm happy they accepted that. And later on that night, so it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock, she started breathing in deeply and she went into a coma. So if it wasn't for that social worker saying to get a will, and what we would have been really messed up because most of her life was in New York and now in Florida and then dealing with probate and all these other issues. So no one wants to talk about it, but it's important, especially healthy people, to make sure you have last rites and wills and stuff, right?
Oh,
So
thank you
basically,
so much.
she
Thank you so much sharing that, for sharing that point, Chef. I want to make sure that, you know, that, yeah, those are great points that you're bringing up and making sure that we have all of that. I know that we have, we're going to have like a few minutes after too, so you can share more about this story and your mom. And it's
yeah,
just looking
I'm
at,
continuing. Yeah. The
yeah,
thing is, I just wanted to say she passed away January 29, 2018. And a week after my mom passed, just from the grief, I was getting my grandmother ready to take over care. I was on her way bringing her to the airport. And my grandmother said, I'm dizzy and dizzy. And she dropped in front of me and she had a stroke. So basically, I lost my mom and my grandmother a week from one another while pregnant with my daughter. So this is a reasoning why I am in Barbados, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's because of them. And if I could help any other families from either delaying that, that's why I'm here. So the next slide is, yeah. So if anyone is familiar with Dr. Jessica Harris, she does a lot of documentaries like on PBS, but basically she's really into the African diaspora. So a lot of the fruits and vegetables from the African region or continent and how through spice trade, it travels to the Caribbean and to the Americas. So a lot of the foods like hush puppies in the southern states are called fish fritters or fish cakes in Barbados or in different islands. So every country has their own version, even like the diaspora going to Brazil or certain areas in Latin America. So the context is the same, but there may be little minor changes of ingredients. So the next slide. Yeah, so this is just a list of topics that we'll discuss. So the soul food, navigating treatment, taste changes, especially if you're taking chemotherapy or any other prescription medication. And just as you see here, busting myths, because one of them, for example, my mom used to say, sugar fuels cancer. You know, I don't know if the audience has heard that before, but we'll explore that further on. So the next slide. So again, like I was mentioning before, a lot of the foods are from the African continent as it applies to the African diaspora. So making sure in treatment, your caregivers, just eating as a whole, you want to make sure that your plate is as colorful as possible, the colors of the rainbow, because these colors correlate to a certain nutrient in our body. So you can go to the next slide. So again, like mentioning the food and treatment, anything that leaves like a metallic aftertaste could make your favorite foods turn off, like sweet potato pie or pumpkin pie, especially with the holidays coming up. If the food doesn't taste good, you're not gonna want to eat it, and it'll be so hurtful, especially that's the one time of the year that I miss the most is fall. So I miss everything, the fall leaves, everything, all the visuals that you would see in New York. That's the time I miss. So imagine that someone is going through treatment, that's their main time of the year, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and the food doesn't taste like it did 3 years before or a year before. Mouth sores, especially if you're having radiation or chemotherapy. We'll discuss nausea and fatigue, ways to improve that, and then changes in nutritional needs when you further in treatment or in remission. Okay. So the next slide just gives practical tips. If you do have a metallic aftertaste now, you could use plastic utensils instead of metal, or try marinating foods in citrus or vinegar, Italian dressing, lemon, lime, tart flavors, like I mentioned there, mouth sores, soft, moist foods, smoothies, just to add protein and sustenance to your foods. And then fatigue, frozen vegetables. Again, especially in New York or other parts of the world, people are busy, busy, busy. Not everyone has 30 minutes or an hour to sit and make a 3-course meal, right? So sometimes people, like on Sundays, they meal prep, or say like black beans, what we're gonna do later on today. Sometimes black beans, unless you have a pressure cooker, it could take an hour or more. Like if you soak it overnight, you put it in a pressure cooker, that cuts the time into like 30 minutes. You could have a stock pot of that, put it in the freezer, defrost it. You could put it in the refrigerator the beginning of the day in the morning, and by the time you get home, it's already defrosted. So different tips to make eating healthy attainable, to remove as many barriers as possible. And then another thing is small, frequent meals. Sometimes because of the side effects, you can't eat a large meal like you used to. So just small, frequent meals. So the next slide just shows the African heritage. We always see or hear about the food pyramid, but it's specifically as it relates to the African heritage, right? So Ms. Colin and Ms. Chase, afterwards, you're free to share these slides if you want so that the audience could zoom further on, right? So the next slide. So example, leafy greens. Collard greens is more plentiful like in the southern states, but in the Caribbean it's callaloo, or maybe something else, right? So that's where that slide comes in. So common foods of African heritage. So I'll enlarge it more so that you could see. Let's see. Moment.
It won't be able to enlarge because I'm sharing my
Yeah,
screen with your
I'm gonna speak
slides.
it. I'm gonna speak it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna narrate what the slide is saying. So beets and greens, callaloo, spinach, asparagus, beets, barley, amaranth, grains. These are different foods that you could add to your meals to help bulk up. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you want to feel full and satisfied, right? Instead of relying on carbohydrates or white flours to keep full, right? So the next picture in that slide is, if you're familiar with spinach, you could try collards. Or if you're familiar with arugula, you could try mustard greens, or vice versa, pomegranate, passion fruit, eggplant, okra, potatoes, or yuca. These are different food swaps, especially from the African diaspora, that you could try and use. So the next slide, like I was mentioning before, making sure our plate is as colorful as possible. I'll narrate what the picture is saying. So red fruits and vegetables, for example, lycopene, it could reduce breast cancer and prostate cancer, and it helps improve the heart, brain, eye, and bone health. Beta carotene found in orange fruits and vegetables helps reduce inflammation, so joint pain, supports immune system. We always hear about vitamin C and if you're sick, right? And helps with your vision. You always hear carrots are good for your eyes, right? So folate, green fruits and vegetables, depending as a caveat, if you have any kidney problems, whatnot, speak to your healthcare professional. But basically, green leafy vegetables, or if you're taking medication that could affect blood or any type of prescription medication. As a caveat, as a pharmacist, please discuss this with your personalized healthcare professional. But basically, green fruits and vegetables are good for your bones, muscles, and heart health. And blueberries, again, helps with free radicals, scourging around your body and removing those cancer-causing cells from your body. And then resveratrol, again, purple fruits and vegetables, right? So the next slide is just discussing different swaps. So again, I'm from Queens. So in the northern states, we do pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. I just want to ask a question to the audience. What is an alternative to pumpkin pie in the southern states?
Pumpkin pie.
I guess sweet
Pumpkin,
pie or yeah, I guess. I
Sweet
don't like-
potato.
Sweet potato.
Sweet
you're
potato.
right. You are right. Because the thing is, what I do is health education cooking classes, right? So basically, it was November, and I was like, I'm gonna show them, we're gonna do pumpkin pie, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. And they're like, we don't do pumpkin pie, we do sweet potato pie. So making sure you're culturally sensitive too, even though I'm from the Black diaspora, it's different names in different regions, right? So this is for collard greens. So sometimes the traditional way is slow cooked or the ham hock and salted pork to add flavor. But you could try adding sauteed onions, garlic, smoked turkey breast, right? Or different ways of preparing the healthy meals, limiting the salt, because again, if you're taking cancer medication, blood pressure medication, any type of prescription medication, salt could affect your blood pressure levels. So just be mindful of that. A lot of the things that we had, during slavery and whatnot is because that's what the slave masters gave. But that doesn't mean we have to continue with that. Yes, we want to honor our culture, but there's certain things that we could limit or improve on. And that's what this slide is there to demonstrate. So the next slide is macaroni and cheese, right? So white pasta, processed cheese, butter, whole milk, those are the traditional methods. But again, trying whole wheat, right? Or cauliflower instead, or butternut squash. I don't know if anyone has tried butternut squash before. Yes, no, raise hand.
You guys are
I'm,
up, ladies.
does anyone like squash? Butternut squash?
I've used it to make like for soup or something. If I run it, like a traditional Jamaican soup, like I use it to do that. But I mean, it tastes fine. I think it's more of a fall thing. Like it tastes good.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of puree, like for the soup, but it tastes fine.
Yeah, because one of the patients
has tried it too. Anitra said in the chat she's tried it too.
Okay, great. Because the thing is, again, health education cooking classes, we'll talk about different health events. So say March is colon cancer awareness. So we'll speak about the importance of fiber and how fiber is good for our gut and colon health. So November, we were talking about diabetes awareness, and one of the participants, he was in his 40s, but he was diabetic for 20 years. And he was like, I love pasta. And no matter time I speak to the nutritionist, especially he was of African descent, but the nutritionist or the healthcare team was a different race. They were Caucasian. So some of the life stories that that patient may have may not be similar to the healthcare team. So we just suggested trying butternut squash. And when he tried it and we flavored it up with olive oil and sauteing it, he was like, the traits were similar to pasta. And he's like, you know what? I don't even need to have pasta. I love the butternut squash. And just trying different fruits and vegetables, you may like it, you know, because he's never heard of it before. But now that's his favorite meal. And now he's at goal with his blood sugar levels. So the last thing is sweet potato pie. So it's a pie crust, lots of sugar, butter, condensed milk. And essentially, when I was in New York and even Florida with the Thanksgiving, the certain things like cranberry sauce. And when I looked at some of these recipes, it's like a cup of sugar, a cup of this, a cup of that. And I realized how much sugar we're really consuming. Yes, it tastes good, but your Thanksgiving meal already has like 3 cups of sugar and a sweet potato pie, depending how you make it, or candied yams. If you put brown sugar plus marshmallows on top, so just being mindful of what we're consuming. So healthier ways of changing those ingredients or altering it with spices. So increased clove, cinnamon, star anise. These warming spices could really take the place for the sugar content, or coconut milk and almond milk instead, right? So the next slide is just like what you see on TV when they have the little cooking demonstrations. That's what we're gonna do now. So I'm at the next slide where it says remix in action. Yeah. So basically, again, I love food. Growing up in New York, growing up in Queens, where you have Indian, Asian, Caribbean, all different cultures all at once. That's what I do here. So just showing to be appreciative of other cultures, because say, for example, a certain salad, green papaya. In the Asian countries, they use green papaya. I don't know if anyone in the audience has ever used green papaya before, but basically it has a trait of a cucumber. So instead of it being ripe, you could use it green, and it has the same traits as cucumber, and it'll absorb the flavors as well. So basically, again, with the spice trade route, certain spices originated in Asia, then the Middle East, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas and whatnot. So basically, with this particular salad, it's an Arabic salad, a Mediterranean salad, a Caribbean salad. It's just different alterations. So say in the Mediterranean, they're using lemon, and in the Hispanic or Caribbean area, they're using lime instead. You know, so it's different short variations. So even the Mediterranean aspect of it, they add quinoa to it. You know, so it's just a base, and then you can add what you want to it. So just give me a minute to set up. I'm gonna get my helper here from Shekinah.
No,
Just to
and
make sure.
yeah, and while you're getting set up, I guess your daughter
Yeah.
will be helping. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
you know, that this seems like a not only a healthy meal, but something that's cost effective as well. And, you know, an affordable way to eat as well, too. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. So her name is Shekinah. Yeah. So it means different, you know, variations, but it means the visual presence of God. So basically, the name of the organization, when my mom died, I was in church. They were talking about the 5 loaves, 2 fish story. And basically, we all have different talents and gifts. It's not just for us to keep within, it's for us to share. So, like I said before, if I could do anything to help another family from experiencing what I went through, the grief, depression, sadness. This year is like the first year I could finally truly smile and really mean it, because after my mom passed January, she was born in June. And there was a point where I was healthy, but the thing is, a point where I didn't want to take pictures for myself. I used to love pictures. My phone has 36,000 pictures, but there was a time when I didn't want to take pictures. I took pictures for her for documentation. But imagine I'm a pharmacist, but I'm Googling, how do you do this? How do you do that? I lost my mom and my grandmother all while pregnant. So basically, if I could do anything to prevent another family from experiencing that sadness, right? So basically, what we're going to do is an alteration to this slide here, the Caribbean fresca salad. So I don't know. I'm going to come to this, the camera lens so you can see better. One moment. One moment. One moment. She's 7 now. Yeah. Um, yeah, she's 7 now. Okay. So again, we have the black beans. You see? This helps with the fiber, so you feel fuller longer. So you're not overeating. And then you're getting the protein that you need. Corn, sorry, tomato, cucumber, onion if you choose, and then a vinaigrette. I don't know if anyone in the audience has ever made a vinaigrette before. But basically, okay. But basically, what I do with these classes is whole foods from scratch. No preservatives, everything is whole foods. So when you make a vinaigrette, you're using the oil, right? So you can use olive oil, and you're using an acid, so a lemon or lime, or you could use vinegar. But basically, the oil and the acid, you're blending it to all your choice spices. So here on the plate, depending on the intensity, you could use like thyme, right? Or you could use a pepper, garlic, onion, you could use cilantro or parsley, whichever you choose to help flavor the dressing. So the reasoning why I'm saying all of that is to avoid unnecessary processed foods and ingredients, because these ingredients affect your healing and outcomes, especially your cholesterol levels, blood pressure, and whatnot. She's so happy she's on TV, on the right. So again, and then you could do moderate salt, pepper for the dressing, right? So again, another reason why I chose this is because it's economical. Not everyone has 30 minutes or more to make a meal. So this is 15 minutes. You're just adding all these ingredients together. And again, as a caveat, I do these programs, they call it primary schools here, but elementary schools here. So it's healthy meals that even kids could make. And they love this. So they add pasta, chicken to this base as well, and they love it, right? So basically, it's a black beans or any choice bean that you want. She's gonna do that. What are you gonna add next, Shekinah? Add it. She's gonna add the corn. Very good. What next? What is that?
Tomato.
Tomato. What's next? What is this? Cucumber. She doesn't want the onion. For the adults, they could use the onion. But another reason is this, say you're a caregiver and you want to make sure that your loved one is eating something nutritious. This is what extended family or caregiver can make for their loved one. 1 minute. So again, she just added all the ingredients together, you see, and you just mix it around, right? So like with this could be used as a side, entree. So you could have this as your main meal, a side meal, whatnot, and you could just spruce it up by adding a protein, your choice protein. You could add fish, chicken, pasta, whichever you choose. So that is this. And then we're gonna make the vinaigrette. So it's your choice oil, ideally olive oil. You want to stay away from the processed oils like sunflower, canola oil, and whatnot. But I know cost and whatnot, but especially cost in the Caribbean because we import a lot of things. Like say, for example, olive oil, depending on the brand, it's $25 for a 200 when a sunflower oil is $10. So if someone is on a fixed income, what do you want to do? Yes, you want the olive oil, but you got to do what you got to do. So for example, this is sunflower oil, right? So you just squeeze the oil. Well, you have the oil, you squeeze the lemon juice into it. You could add salt, pepper, whatnot, whatever you choose, and then you just mix it well. And that just incorporates all that. So now you say, I like when my grandmother, she used to say, I'm on a fixed income. And I'm the same way, I'm on a fixed income. So basically, you just, 1 minute. So you just save yourself X amount of money for the salad dressing. It's nutritious, it's not processed. Because think about it, when you have these processed items, you see the day supply or the expiration date is 2-3 years away. Just think about these preservatives, what they're doing in our bodies. So you want to eat as whole, unprocessed as possible, right? So that's that, the vinaigrette, and then you could just add that to the salad, right? So she wants to show the audience. Come, Chicana. Very good. What are you gonna do next? No, no, you're gonna mix this around, right? They want to see you. Come mix it around. Any questions, class?
How come, so you wouldn't put lettuce in there or like
Well,
spring or spring or what is it? Mixed spring lettuce or spinach leaves or something?
you can. And then again with the spinach, certain things. 1 minute, 1 minute. She loves it. She wants to eat it. All right. Bye. Hold it good. So she's 7 and she's eating a bowl of vegetables. So they like it. She loves it. So basically, the different chef cuts. There's one called chiffonade, where say you have the spinach or lettuce leaves and you roll it to like a roll, like say a sushi roll, and then you slice it thin. So that helps even like when you change the shape. You ever see like a fancy restaurant and they make all these fancy cuts of certain things? It makes it more elevated and sometimes it changes the whole taste and perception of that particular thing. So you could add lettuce or spinach and the chiffonade, like the thin strips, to that as well. So thank you, Miss Chase. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably
Yeah.
just add it because I like the lemon and I assume that the reason, and ladies, you're welcome to ask any questions or, but I think for that, as you said, I like the idea of making the dressing ourselves. And I've started doing that a little bit more. Look, it's easier just to go and buy some salad dressing, but I think especially for people who are trying to cut back on like sodium or the saturated fats, sometimes you not only have a cancer diagnosis, but you also have diabetes or hypertension. So I think that's a great way to cut back on calories and just making calories and making the small changes. I would have probably
Yeah.
added cilantro to it because I like a
It's
big,
true.
so
Yeah, because the thing is, this
yeah,
was the cilantro. So the
yeah, yeah.
cilantro, or like in the Mediterranean or Arabic, they use parsley. So it's just different variations, but you're right, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Do anyone have any questions or comments about the recipe or any questions about types of food and their medicinal values or anything in particular?
Yeah, I just have afterwards just 4 more slides and then that would be the conclusion of
Sure,
everything.
sure.
You ready for me to share the
Oh,
slides?
yeah. Someone has a question about
Oh,
lack, but we'll ask, do we want to, let's finish up the slides and then we'll ask the
Okay.
question.
yeah, we'll
We'll
do
be right,
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll be right back with that answer. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so for example, the next slide where it says busting myths, right? My mom, she used to say sugar feeds cancer. I don't know if the audience has heard that, but all I could say is by research. I can't speak, I don't work for these drug companies. I can only go by the information that's available. But I'll just read it. All cells, including healthy ones, use glucose, which is sugar. There is no strong evidence that eating sugar makes cancer grow faster. However, a diet high in added sugars can lead to weight gain and inflammation. So that's why I'm saying making sure that your plate is as colorful as possible to avoid inflammation, the pain in your joints and whatnot, right? So focus on natural sugars from fruits and complex carbohydrates. So say example, the quinoa, these are complex carbohydrates, or brown rice instead of white rice. Foods that'll make you feel fuller longer. The worst thing to do is say you go to McDonald's or these fast food restaurants, especially now with the cost of living. You spend all this money and then you're hungry 20 minutes later. I like to eat and still feel full, hopefully an hour afterwards. So you get value for your money. People work hard for their money, you know? So myth 2, you need to eat 100% clean or alkaline diet to beat cancer. You know, now with social media, someone can post anything. You know, you do a screenshot post and now you send it out to millions and millions of people, right? Or reposting or what's on WhatsApp. So make sure that whenever you are getting health particular information, you want to find out, is this a credible resource? Is this just some random site? You want to make sure that it's from a credible resource. So a website that ends in .gov. So National Institutes of Health or CDC or whatnot. Credible websites, not just random Facebook post or, and then in any doubt, speak to your healthcare professional, please. We don't want anything to happen to you, right? So please, right? So the next slide is managing stress related eating. Yeah, I'm limited. I don't have the Twizzlers, the Rose, like living in Florida, Orlando, you have a Walmart on every other corner. And you have rows and rows of these snacks and stuff like that. Now, in a different region, you don't have that luxury. But the thing is, it's easy to get a bag of gummy bears or Twizzlers or whatever you choose. Some people like salt, some people like sugar. But make sure you pause and check in. Are you really hungry, or are you just doing that because you're watching TV or a Lifetime movie and you want ice cream just to keep busy? Just be mindful of what we're doing, because this adds calories and this affects our health system overall. So as an alternative, a tea. I don't know if anyone has tried chai tea in the audience. Yeah.
That's my tea. That's my jam. Yes, that's my drink.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite. It's too spicy for me. It tastes a little bit too spicy.
I am
Okay.
I
spicy.
like spicy. I like spicy on my food, but not, I don't want to drink like it's just too spicy for me.
I am
Has
spicy. I'm the definition of
any-
spicy.
I know, I know.
Has anyone in the audience actually made chai tea or masala chai from scratch, or they just get the tea bag? And because masala chai is darnis, ginger, clove. Sometimes they use like black pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, and whatnot. You just blend it and you steep it in water, you strain it, and then you can add sugar if you want, or milk and whatnot. And so sometimes I have to think of alternatives. I'm in the Caribbean now. So say I love cookies and cakes, but now I have a chai tea instead, you know? So just being mindful of what we're doing and prepare healthy comfort. So pre-cut vegetables or, you know, meal prepping, right? So you're not gravitating towards quick, fast things in the grocery store, the convenience store, right? At the end of the day, think, is this really nourishing me? Yes, Twizzlers taste good, but is this really providing sustenance and nutrition for my body? You know, that's my thing. It was Twizzlers at the time, right? So just being mindful of that, right? And the last slide, or second to last slide. So our culture, you know, it was a Labor Day parade, the Caribbean Day Parade in Brooklyn. Our culture, that's where we come from, our ancestry, depending if you're a descendant from Ghana, the Ivory Coast, whatnot. That's where we're from. Not to discount, you can't eat this ever again, but showing you healthier alternatives to your tradition and your cultural foods, right? We come a long way and still working, right? So just honoring our past. If it wasn't for my past, I wouldn't be where I am right now and speaking before you, Miss Nelson and Miss Chase, and to your audience, you know? So I appreciate that, you know, and you are the expert of your body. Again, I dispense the medication, but at the end of the day, you know your body the best. We call, ideally, say a patient picks up a new prescription, I would call them like within 1 or 2 days just to see how they're feeling. Because I don't ask, I won't know how you're doing. And sometimes people may be not embarrassed, but they may not want to open up. But when you share your story or you share, or you know what, I'm experiencing this, that may be saying, you know what, the doctor's like, you know what, let me lower the dose of this particular medication or let me change to something else. There's always an alternative. So speak. If we don't speak, even for myself, I won't know. I have to ask, you know? So you are the expert in your body. So let us know as healthcare providers because we want the best for you, you know? And then the last slide is different resources for recipes or books. Another one is the cultural cookbooks, or another one specifically where I got most of the slides regarding the African diaspora and the foods. It's Old Ways, African Heritage in their website. And again, local resources. Yes, I'm a pharmacist, but I like food. So the nutritionists, the dietitians, you know, your healthcare team, your dedicated healthcare team. Pharmacists, their specialty is the medication, the doctor, diagnosing, nursing, the caregiving role, and all the other associated roles that make up your healthcare team, you know? And then the last thing is just a thank you. Thank you for joining. You didn't have to, but you did, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
No, thank you, Chef. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was great here. I know we have a couple of questions and I'm sure more will show up too, but I just want to first thank you so much for showing up tonight and for sharing that quick, easy recipe, a healthy recipe. And I also just want to thank you for, sharing the story of your family members, your mom and your grandma. And I'm sure that it resonated with the group members as well. So thank you so much. And they were beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
They're really carrying on their legacy with the work and the recipes, right? Because that's the way of carrying on our family's recipes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm.
Thank you. So we'll have Tanya ask a question. She had her hand raised, and I'm going to also look in the chat because I know I saw questions about some black beans. Yes. So go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. I would just say thank you so much for sharing your story and your family recipe. That's very good and very thoughtful and considerate of you to do that. I wanted to ask about eating a healthy diet. It is very important, but statistically in research, we're finding that obesity is tied to cancer. And so, are there any foods that you, in addition to just large foods with large carbohydrates and packaged foods, are there any items that you think that people can, do you think, I'm home now, do you think that people can eat in addition to that? I know this isn't about exercise, but that is some way that we can remain healthy is to have some form of daily exercise. So, anyway, those are my questions. My name is Tanya Yelder. I work at a cancer center and I'm also a survivor. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and your question. And that's the whole heart of the program that I do. So I really focus on whole unprocessed foods. So the slide before at the beginning, making sure our plate is as colorful as possible, because that's where all the nutrients and the minerals and the antioxidants are found in, right? Yes, rice and peas taste good, but try adding, on the side, pumpkin, you get the beta carotene in that. So to answer your question, making sure as a hallmark, your plate is as colorful as possible. I say that to the kids when I teach the kids, all the way up to the adult. It's something easy. Make sure it's the color of the rainbow because you're getting all the antioxidants, the vitamins, nutrients, and minerals that your body needs to help prevent free radicals from damaging the healthy cells. Yeah.
No, and thank you for sharing that. I think about as Tanya said, she works in like a cancer center, and I know that yes, cancer is some of it is linked to obesity. you know, some of it, but I think that a lot of times, too, especially if you're talking about our communities, some of them are, you know, a lot of our patients are living in food deserts. They don't really have accessible stores with whole foods, but there's still ways, I think, to get, as she said, limiting some of the processed foods, trying to, I know that a lot of people say, even if you're going to make greens, instead of making it at only Thanksgiving time, right? You can make it, omit some of the, you know, the salted pork or meat or something, and then put, and be able to cook that and eat that as a daily, or, you know, every other, like twice a week or something like that. So there are ways, I think it's just a matter of, finding the references that she showed in, like some cookbooks, some culturally sensitive cookbooks, and learning ways how to tailor it. And you have to do your research as well, too. So I hope that this is kind of like a stepping stone for many of you who are trying to figure out how to kind of stay away from processed foods.
Yeah, and just one last thing. Corn is not native to Barbados, right? So it's canned corn, right? So you could use canned items, especially when I was in Orlando, especially working at different pharmacies in particular regions and the communities. Like you said, it's a food desert or even a pharmacy desert, right? So
Right.
canned item, ideally frozen vegetables. You could use canned fruits and vegetables, but if you do use canned fruits and vegetables, you want to drain the liquid, right? Or rinse it with water so you're not consuming the additional sugars or the different salts and stuff like that. So there are ways to make it accessible. Yeah.
Right, right. And also limiting the sodium, right? Where you can, I buy beans, like if I am gonna buy beans from the can, I try to, and I think that's, we're gonna get to that question from uh Kalia. She was asking about, you know, the black beans, do you just boil it or you soak it? But yes, if you're gonna buy beans, to buy beans that are, say, no added salt or have zero sodium, as opposed to 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because I have the dry, because with the supermarket, it's a lot of convenience. It's easier just to grab and go, put it in a microwave, hit 30 seconds twice or put a minute, and then you have food, right? But all those things, they strip away all the nutrients and the minerals and whatnot. So basically, when you say black beans, yes, the dried beans, they may be cheaper, but to prep them, it may take longer. So say over, like I was mentioning before, you could have them soaking in the refrigerator overnight to help soften it. Or if you have a pressure cooker, or a slow cooker, you could cook that 30 minutes, or Instapot, right? You could use that, or you could have the black beans in a can. You just drain it off, rinse it off with water. So the different ways, so either dried, canned, or pressure cooker, or on a pot on the stove.
Mhm.
Yeah, you cook it to the label an hour, but the pressure cooker makes it easier. Yeah.
I have a quick question. So I often see that we are not supposed to eat corn. So I was actually surprised when I saw corn, because I'm always saying like we shouldn't eat corn. It's hard to digest. Like what's the thing with corn?
Mhm.
I like corn, you know? But it's a fiber too. Popcorn, corn, even like a snack, like a healthy snack. You could use popcorn. You could, and that's the thing, we'll get the kernels of popcorn and you could flavor it to soup. So sometimes people like a savory aspect of it. So they'll add paprika or like a small amount of sea salt or thyme or oregano, and now it can turn into something savory. So, I mean, you know, you hear all this information. This is bad for you. This is good for you. So sometimes people are just confused. They don't know what to do. But at the end of the day, I'll say making sure your plate is as colorful as possible, sticking with fruits and vegetables, the fiber that's present in corn, it's good. You just want to monitor your sugar levels if you know you're diabetic or you have high sugar readings. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Right. I
yeah.
guess it goes back to everything. I know that we say everything in moderation, right? So I guess,
Mhm.
as you said, you want it to be colorful, the colors of the rainbow. I'm sure that with you adding the corn with other things, it's not like deep fried corn or something that you see at the fair, or if it's ladled with a lot of cheese or dairy or something like that. So I think there are ways, as you said, to make it healthier.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other questions from the ladies?
And just want to say the culinary historian that Dr. Harris mentioned was Dr. Jessica B. Harris, and we will have these slides that Dr. Harris so carefully put together. So we'll let you know once those are loaded onto the website. So don't you worry if you came in late. You're going to be able to see the slides, hear this conversation. So everyone, let's give a round of applause. Let's give some love in the chat and everything for Dr. Harris and taking the time to be with us today in Barbados, no less, and
Yes.
for sharing, your family story and connection to early stage breast cancer and metastatic breast cancer. We greatly appreciate that vulnerability.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
All right, stop recording.